everyone, this is Chris, and you're listening to One Cross Radio, and today we are rejoined by our dear friend...
Steve!
Steve!
Guess that's how I'm referenced on this station.
That will always be how you're introed, I'm pretty sure.
Steve!
Steve! If we ever get Biggie here, Lord help us.
Yeah.
Alright, Steve, what are we talking about today, man?
Today, you're going to hear two white guys talk about Black Panther. Hopefully it'll be acceptable.
Yeah. I'll be honest, like, I haven't said anything about the movie online recently.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's just because I'm nervous about it.
Well, we can take this as a good omen, at least.
Yeah.
I got here for the first time in a little while without getting a ticket or wrecking my car. So, literally the last 2 out of 3 times I've come to hang out with Chris, I've either gotten a speeding ticket or totaled my car. So far, so good.
So far, so good. And, like, the reason I'm nervous about it is, and I know you kind of disagreed when we were talking about it over text, but I don't find the film itself overly political. Right?
Oh, I thought it was very political, but yeah. That's why we disagreed. That's what he said earlier.
But I find the audience around the movie just so insanely political.
Yeah.
And it's getting so much abundant love. And I can see some of that, and I can understand part of it. But then, to me, it's a lot more of the hype than necessary, or what the movie represents, and not the film itself. But then when I've seen people bring up issues, some of them have just been dumped on like ridiculously. I'm like, I just want to talk about the comic book movie.
Yeah, and you know what? So I went into Black Panther nervous because it had so much hype, and I didn't love Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
In fact, there were parts of it I enjoyed, but overall I'd say it was a pretty bad movie. And I didn't want to be a racist and a misogynist. So I was a little bit nervous about Black Panther going into it. But I actually, while I didn't love it as much as everybody has been hyping it up, I liked it. I thought it was a decent movie. It was a fun movie. And much better than... You like Wonder Woman, though?
I do. See, it's been weird. The past while, like just the other night, we watched Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And
is that your first time seeing it? Or you seen
No. I saw it 2 times in theaters, and then we watched it the other night.
Cool.
And I'm finding with a lot of the recent comic book movies, it's like when you watch it in theater and it's there and it's fresh, it's new. You're focusing on all that good stuff, but then like from time separated, and then it's coming out on DVD, and I'll be picking it up next week. And as I watched it, I'm like, it's good, but I didn't love it as much as I did when I saw it in theater.
Huh. I've only seen it the one time. So.
And then Wonder Woman, same thing. Like, because I've been off and on sick so much. A couple months ago, I sat down and I watched Wonder Woman again, and I'm like, yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
But it's not amazing.
Yeah. Well, see, so the thing with Wonder Woman is that I didn't dislike it because of the woman stuff. I thought Gal Gadot did a great job.
Yeah.
I thought she played the fish out of water in a man's world, quote unquote man's world, really well. I just thought it was...
Kirk was amazing.
I just thought it was a really predictable plot that was a mashup of Thor and Captain America again with a crappy CGI battle at the end that wasn't very good and very predictable. Like, you could tell right away that what's his name, Lupin, was going to be the bad guy. The only thing that
I love that he's Lupin.
I don't know what his name is in real life, but I was like, the only thing that detracted from that was like, I'm not sure that he could be Ares because that doesn't make any sense, but he was, and it still didn't make any sense. And then the whole thing where like Ares isn't the person that causes war, humanity needs to take responsibility, and then when they defeat him, the bad guys literally hug. Like the opposite side soldiers hug each other at the end. I thought that movie was a mess in general. Now with cool action except for the last part.
With that point,
we need to stop talking about Wonder Woman soon. So make your point.
Yeah. With that point about Wonder Woman, I'll say like I didn't have the beef with them hugging at the end, because even though that was the message, like man needs to step up and stop doing this crap. Like a giant CGI flaming thing did just happen. People did kind of stop fighting each other and turn to like, what?
Yeah.
And then she beat them. So to me, it's like, oh, okay, we're out of dangers. Like that emotional thing where it's like, okay, yay, the danger's done.
I've never been in war, but I kind of feel like you wouldn't do that with the other side even after something like that.
They also did play soccer together on a Christmas and hugged and were buddies, and then the next day they went back to shooting each other.
That's true. That's a crazy story.
Yeah, anyway, I know. Back to
So here's the thing about the politics of Black Panther, and I actually like this part of it. Black Panther, it's right in the title, right? This is a movie made by black people for black people about black issues, and I think that's a good thing. That's something that needed to happen, and I think it's even with Luke Cage. I know you didn't love Luke Cage, and it was a bit slow. I understand it was a bit slow, and I actually I thought it was a weird twist. I thought Cottonmouth was a much better villain than Mariah, but whatever. The idea of a bulletproof black man, especially when that came out, when there's all those black guys getting shot by cops, was really important. And this is, taking those ideas and kind of going further with them, with the suffering of black people and through slavery and through the way they're being treated in the United States right now, and I'm sure Canada as well. There's some important message there, right? That's important stuff. And Black Panther is the movie to talk about that in, because he's the first mainstream black superhero that was ever published, right?
Yeah.
He first appeared in Fantastic Four and then Avengers and had his own title. He was actually in a comic called Jungle Action for a while before he had Black Panther. But he's not the first African American character. That's the Falcon.
Yeah.
But he's the first black guy because he's actually African, right?
Yeah.
And tidbit that I think is really interesting: Falcon's the first black superhero that didn't have the word black in his name.
Huh.
But anyway, so I mean, he's the character where you want to focus on those things.
Yeah.
And so where I saw the politics in this movie were just little things like, well, I mean, they're talking about Killmonger's his whole motivation of black people have been mistreated because the white people have been in power all this time, and you had the ability, Wakanda, to turn the tide on that, save your brothers and sisters from being taken into slavery, help the people that are suffering in poverty in the West now, and you've chosen to hide, right? And then they make the joke, they call Martin Freeman's character Ross, they call him colonizer,
yeah,
and, those things. But at the end, that press conference, that sort of I am Iron Man moment, with T'Challa and Black Panther talking to the UN and saying that we are going to now no longer be in isolation and help people. There's that moment where I think it was a French ambassador says, no offense, but what do you have to offer? And he smirks, and obviously in the context of the movie, it's like, you have no idea who we are and what we have to offer. But I think that was supposed to stand for more than just this fictional country of Wakanda that has technological superiority, but for black people in general, like, you have no idea what we have to offer as a people and our strength and so all of that stuff in the movie, I thought was really well done and really good. And that's not the reason that I didn't love the movie.
Yeah.
I think that added a lot of weight to a movie that would have otherwise been a very by the numbers, another superhero origin.
Yeah.
So you can say your...
Yeah, no. And when I say I don't think it was as political as you do, I mean in the sense of it wasn't a dear white people kind of like
for sure.
overtly like let's press the button political kind of thing.
Right.
It was like they really weaved it into the story.
Yeah.
It was at points it was at points overt, it was at points subtle, but it wasn't like we're gonna punch you in the face with this message kind of thing.
Which I think is a good thing.
Yes.
Right? So here's the deal. If it had been a Dear White People movie, I think that would have undermined the whole point. This is a movie for a black audience.
Yes.
Right? And for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah.
But so I had a friend named Luke. I think I mentioned him when we were talking about Star Wars last time, who went and saw it, and he said that he was sitting surrounded by people of color in the movie theater, and they were laughing at parts that he was like, I don't understand why that's funny. Like there'd be scenes where they would look at each other in a certain way, and they're just like the culture of black North America was just sort of ingrained in this movie in a way that as a white person you're kind of an outsider to, right? And that's okay. I'm fine with the fact that this movie wasn't made specifically for me.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the reason that as an outsider to those things, I can appreciate it, but I can't love it as much as somebody who was like, yeah, this is targeted at my heart.
Yeah. And I definitely think that's fair. And there was points after the movie where I'm seeing all these rave reviews.
Yeah.
I'm like, did we did we watch the same movie?
Yes.
Like when we left the theater, how it always goes, especially when we see a superhero movie or a Star Wars movie, like something that I or Jill are crazy into, the conversation once we've gotten out of the theater, because we're not trying to spoil anything, is, what did you think of it?
Yeah.
Or it's like, so what'd you like?
Yeah.
And there was a long pause for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, it's not that it's bad.
Yeah.
But I went in hearing a lot of hype, and I'm just like, I just want to go in and be entertained. Yeah. And then if I love it beyond that, then that's great.
Are you not entertained, Chris?
That's like that's gravy. That's bonus. Mm-hmm. But in this one, I was just like, I was led to believe, and seeing people's reactions afterwards, like this is knocking Winter Soldier out. This is knocking Civil War out. Yeah. Like this is the Marvel movie now. I'm like, it was all right. Like I'd give it a solid 6, but out of 10 if I had to grade it, or on the Marvel scale, I'd be like, yeah, it's around Ultron.
Really? Oh, I liked it better than that for sure.
See,
well, did you like Ultron? Upon
repeated viewings, I really enjoy Ultron, flaws and all.
I think the biggest downplay to a Marvel movie for me is if it's bloated because it's trying to set up the sequels.
Yeah,
that bothers me. So Ultron, Thor, Iron Man 2 are like my least favorite movies.
And I get that. Yeah. Where I've grown to really appreciate Ultron is I'm like, okay, we're not watching the setup anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we're actually getting to see these characters together and interact together, and that's why I'm here. Yeah, you blew Ultron, because the honest trailer was right. It was roughly a week of.
Yeah.
Thor went to a magic jacuzzi.
Yeah.
And there was stuff that didn't work, but there's also a lot of good stuff there, and I found some of it better made than the first Avengers movie.
For sure.
So that's where Ultron is going up the scales for me.
Okay. And back to Black Panther.
Yeah, back to Black Panther.
Yeah. What did you like about Black Panther?
I'm gonna say now, just as a thing, we rewatched Civil War the other night. I enjoyed that Black Panther more.
Okay. What was different about the Black Panthers?
His fighting style, and I get it. The story they were going with that character in Civil War, it was just he was moving so much different. There was a lot more lethality to his fight, his movements, everything.
He was angry with his dad dying.
Exactly. Yeah. So even though like that part was out, and I get that, I still enjoyed Chadwick a lot. The performances in this movie are fantastic.
Yeah, really good.
Michael B. Jordan is excellent.
I think he's probably the best movie villain we've had, maybe at all, or at least since Loki.
Yeah,
I can't think of anyone who's been.
Yeah,
I
personally kind of put Hela up there, even though she's a bit one.
She was pretty similar in motivation to him as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, here's this secret history that you don't know about.
Exactly. She was also a little. Yeah. You can make the argument she was one dimensional, but Kate Blanchett was just in that role so much that I'm like, I can look over the one dimension piece here because she's just so entertaining in this role.
Well, she's the goddess of death. How many dimensions are you going to have to that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like, whereas other characters where they're one dimensional, they don't escape that. Like whatever the dude is from Ronan from Guardians, I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, that wasn't even one.
No.
Or like Malekith from Thor: The Dark World.
How are you going to do that with Christopher Eccleston? Back to Black Panther.
Yeah.
Loved the performances. That was the thing that won the movie over for me.
Yeah.
And except for Forrest Whitaker, at points I was just like, man, I'm like watching you in Rogue One, because I watched that the other week. I was like, it's the exact same voice. What's going on here, Forrest? Anyways, I'm just not that huge on Whitaker.
Fair enough. What I think the thing that I loved about it was they really went like I don't know Black Panther as much as I would know like Spider-Man or the Avengers or whatever, but from what I know of the comic origin, they really went for it. Like they didn't try to Iron Fist it, where they kind of downplay the mystical side of it and all, and the heart-shaped herb and the ancestral plane and all that kind of stuff.
Well, while we were watching Civil War, I said to Jill, I'm like, I really appreciate that in Black Panther they went through showing he had superpowers.
Yeah.
Because they didn't. in Civil War.
Yeah, they kind of skipped over that.
Which it'd be weird if they brought it up.
Yeah,
like there's no
so
way
much in
to
that movie
organically
anyway.
bring that up in Civil War, but at that point you could easily have ignored it.
Mm-hmm.
You could have just been like, no, he's just an awesome fighter and he's wearing a vibranium suit, so he doesn't need superpowers. Yeah. But I love that they embraced that.
Yeah.
I haven't really read any of the solo Black Panther runs, but I've heard from a lot of people they kind of chose a lot of the best of pieces from numerous runs to get the movie together, which I'm like, that makes me want to read Black Panther more, especially some of these runs.
Well, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed how African it was. Like, it just really felt like a movie that was taking place in Africa.
Yeah.
I really appreciated... I thought the action was really cool. Those fights in the waterfalls were pretty sweet. Some of the stuff with the car chases was a little bit over the top, but that's fine. It was good and fun.
Yeah.
I think where this movie shone was in its villains.
Yeah.
I thought Andy Serkis did an amazing job as Claw. Like, he was just...
they
did a good job of capturing how crazy he is in the actual comics a little bit.
I'm going to jump into a little bit of stuff that I don't like about the movie right now, just because you brought up Claw. I loved Claw.
Yeah, you didn't like that he got killed.
I hated that he got killed.
Yeah.
Only because I'm like, here's a villain who is a straight up comic book villain.
Yeah.
Like,
well, not quite, but okay.
Well, in the sense of...
Can I get the little sidetrack on your sidetrack? Is that in the comics, Claw doesn't have an arm cannon. He has his hand gets cut off, and he gets this vibranium weapon that turns sound into physical objects.
Yeah.
And then he gets... Somehow that gets reversed on him. I don't know exactly where that happens. I'm sure it's in a story involving Black Panther, probably with the Avengers. And he gets turned into sound. He gets turned literally into living sound. And he gets beamed up into space. Somehow gets stuck into Galactus' ship until the original Secret Wars comic from the 1980s, where Doctor Doom, who's trying to take over Galactus' powers, sneaks onto Galactus' ship, finds him, pulls him out, and he's just loony. Like, he's crazy from being stuck in in Galactus' ship as living sound. And then for the rest of the time, for a long time, he's just literally this character in a red suit with like a satellite dish in his arm who is sound and is out of his mind. So they kind of captured part of that in there, and I appreciated that. But they didn't go as far as they could have, but probably wouldn't have made sense to do.
Comics.
Yeah, it's true.
Where I mean he's a straight up comic book villain is in his performance.
Yeah,
because
it's so good.
Everybody is like, so many of the villains have, even though they're over the top, there's this serious edge to them.
Yeah.
That character, there is not really a serious edge.
Yeah.
Especially not with the performance that Andy Serkis has inserted in Age of Ultron, and then
I made it rain
in this movie to even more effect. So here's a villain who's a smaller villain who could easily weave in and out of any of the Marvel movies, because he said himself, like, I go where the money goes. So you could easily have him show up on the streets of New York and have him be a problem that Spider-Man takes care of in the first act of a movie, or even show up in the Netflix show.
Yeah,
which they could have done.
I don't know that'll ever happen, but yeah.
Well,
it is cool when he fights Daredevil though, because his whole thing is sound against Daredevil's heightened senses, kind of screws things up. But anyway.
And it's similar to my feelings on when they killed what's his name? I want to say Bonesaw, but it's not. It's
Bonesaw McGraw. The Crossbones.
Yeah, Crossbones. Yeah. Where it's like that was a character who they could have done so much more with, and they just killed him for the sake of story. Yeah. So then I'm like,
Bonesaw is ready.
Macho Man Randy Savage,
anyway.
R.I.P. It's a character where I'm like, you killed him so the story could get going.
Yeah, I was disappointed that. He's dead.
Yeah, and I really didn't like that, especially with Claw, because that character, even though we rag on one-note characters, he is a great kind of one-dimensional character, and if you can get that performance in any continuously in other Marvel movies, I'm in, man.
Well, and Andy Serkis is such a physical actor, right?
Oh
he
my
really
gosh,
sells that.
yeah.
I think I was kind of hoping that we would get the weird, crazy red suit version of him, because he's the CG motion capture guy, right? But he beefed up for this role. I mean, he was intimidating looking. I mean, you think about how much weight he lost to play Gollum.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But no, he was good. And it's too bad that he's dead. But again, I think it served the plot of the story.
It
right?
did.
They needed to get him out of the way so that Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger could be the guy.
I just wish there was a different way, and it's something I'm hoping that later they'll be like, guess what? It's kind of retconned, or with an Infinity thing coming up.
Yeah,
maybe, but I doubt it.
So that leads us to Killmonger.
Yes,
who is an excellent villain. He was so good.
Yeah.
And I mean, his motivations. I think I made a mention to you because I saw this in an article somewhere on the internet of he's kind of the Dark Knight Joker in a lot of things, right? Like he, the reason that I got over the fact that they killed Claw, although I really liked him as a character, was that he was not the villain of this movie. He looked like it at first, but it was Killmonger in the background manipulating things and using him to get his way because he needed him as leverage to get in there and have his chance to do things. I'm totally expecting though that when How It Should Have Ended happens for this movie, they're gonna do a scene where he's in the throne room and he's like, "Ask me who I am," and nobody speaks, and then that's just the end of the movie because he doesn't get to say his thing. But just really good. Like there's an article. So Polygon, the website, wrote an article called, they've basically Marvel finally found their unpunchable villain or whatever. The idea that every Marvel movie up until now, except for Loki, not only do they kill the villain off at the end of the movie, but whatever he stands for is over for that story, right? Like, so you've got the Ironmonger character, Bridges' character, who, he helps Iron Man to realize that he shouldn't be selling warheads anymore. And then the next time you see Iron Man, like that whole part of him is kind of like they don't really mention that again. He's not like a pacifist anymore or whatever. Right?
No, he is.
Well,
he's brought up that he's doing a lot of stuff for the like alternative energy. Like they brought that up in Avengers big time, where that's why Loki was doing it on the tower. It was the whole son of a bee moment.
Yeah, but he's still like he doesn't want to give his stuff to the military anymore, but he's still using it for
himself.
Yeah, for fighting and all this. Anyway, but like compared to Hela, which like really changed things in Thor because it had made him realize what his father was doing and all these things, and now they're in a different place, right? Asgard's gone. But with this one, they unfortunately at some level, I guess he had to, but Killmonger dies, but it leaves Black Panther in a very different place at the end of that movie. Where he can't just be like, well, we're going to keep going the way we were. He realizes that his ancestors were wrong in the things they were doing, and they have to go forward. So like, the villain matters in this movie a lot.
Well, yeah, and it's the thing of I've read it so many times. I just wish I could remember a place so I could send people to it, where it's like a good villain is one who thinks what they're doing is right.
Yeah.
And Killmonger definitely thought that.
Well,
his methods were wrong.
Yeah.
Like horrendously wrong. I think we can all agree on that. But his plan, if you strip away the, overthrowing and murdering aspect and generations of murder aspect, like looking out for, it boils down to like looking out for his community, his fellow man. That's not wrong.
Yeah, well, I heard he's basically Black Magneto, but Magneto is just white Malcolm X, so it all works out in the end anyway.
And I've read that where people are like, this movie was essentially supposed to be Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X.
Yeah.
With superpowers.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Lego skin and Panther suit.
Lego skin? Oh, because he had the bumps on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he had a Panther suit too.
Yeah.
So, as Michael B. Jordan's villain was great. My favorite character in the movie was M'Baku, or as they didn't mention in the movie, but his comic's name is Man-Ape, which is, I think, is probably a good thing they didn't.
Well, I was reading into it. They deliberately wanted to avoid that.
Well, of course they did,
because they're like, no, this is
they're not gonna use that name.
This is going to be people will make this racist.
But I liked the fact that he was still the guerrilla stuff, and I thought he was an excellent character.
Yeah,
because I know enough about Black Panther to know he's like the tribal rival or whatever, and they're one of his most long-standing villains. When he turned out to be a kind of redeemed character at the end of that, I thought that was I wasn't seeing that. Like, there's a lot in this movie that was predictable. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I didn't see that coming at all. I didn't see the fact that he's felt like he had owed a debt of honor to T'Challa for convincing him to give up and not just dying out of pride. And okay, we're even. but also just the way he treats Martin Freeman, where he's like, "We'll eat or my children will eat you." Just kidding, we're vegetarians.
Yeah.
I just thought he was a really funny character. He was a really he was the meathead, strong guy, but with some honor, and I just thought he was a cool character.
Yeah, I loved his performance. I loved his humor, and then humor is something we're going to be talking about in a minute with the stuff we don't like.
It is?
A little. Well, for me, a little bit,
okay.
yeah.
You can bring that up, that's fine.
For me, just a little bit at points, but it's... Anyways.
Yeah.
Martin Freeman, I really... I always like Martin Freeman. Martin Freeman is always excellent. Yeah. Even if what he's in is crap, he is great.
You're talking about The Hobbit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I wanted him more fleshed out after Civil War. Going into the movie with Black Panther, because he hadn't really been shown much in the trailers, I almost forgot he was there. And then when he showed up, I was like, oh, Martin! And then I did love the scene with him and Andy Serkis, because as much as
he's rubbing his shoulder or whatever. Okay, that's enough.
Well, as much as we'll also I also rip on The Hobbit, I was like, Gollum and
that's true. Yeah,
Gollum and Bilbo reunited.
Yeah,
because that was one of the best parts of the Hobbit movies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that scene, it was just really good. And that's the thing with this movie, where when I was leaving, when I don't like a movie, or when it's not as good, I prefer having personally. It's either like I loved it and here's why, or I didn't like it, and here are these big glaring issues that I had beef with.
Okay.
This movie, I found, didn't have any big glaring issues. It didn't have anything where I'm like, this sucked and it dragged this down. Okay. This was huge and I hated this. Yeah. Like Iron Man 3, I'll rip on for every reason, because to me it's a terrible movie.
Yeah, I disagree with that, but we've talked about that.
We've talked about that.
Nauseum.
But then I like Iron Man 2, even though there's a lot of bad stuff, there's stuff in it I like where I could be like, here's where it's bad, but here's where it's good. Mm. With Panther, it's got some really good stuff, but then it's got some other stuff that I find drags it down. Yeah. And that's my segue into this part.
Okay, you go ahead and segue your thing.
I found it too predictable.
Absolutely.
I also found Jeremy Johns, who does stuff on YouTube. So, listener, if you haven't ever watched his stuff, I'd recommend it. He's a fun reviewer of movies. He also doesn't do things on 2 thumbs up or 1 out of 5 star scale or anything like that. He's got his own scale. Christian listeners, if swearing bugs you, he doesn't swear much. But if it's something that really bothers you, maybe don't. But it's there. He's a very interesting reviewer. I like his stuff a lot.
Okay.
One of his points about the movie, and since watching that review, I agree entirely. It really is 2 different movies.
Okay.
I really find this is Black Panther 1 and Black Panther 2 in one, and that affects some of the pacing issues.
For sure.
Where we've got the first movie is the first chunk of the movie with Claw is a fair bit different from the one with Michael B. Jordan. And then my problem with it is you get invested in Michael B. Jordan every time he's on the screen, but he dips for half an hour.
Yeah.
And that first chunk of the movie, you're just like, okay, what are we doing? Because the real story of the movie is the second half.
Yeah. And
it takes a good while to get there.
Okay.
So then the stuff in the first bit, you're just like, oh, okay, we're just going around a bit. And then when the story gets going, I knew what was going to happen before we got there. Down to the point I'm like, okay, he's going to show up in the, as he's going to the throne room, it's he's going to say who he is. And he's going to beat him at the waterfall. And then you're going to think he's dead. And then he's going to be let's take out the world. And then it's going to come down to a fight. And then, yeah.
So, that's not the only unpredictable thing, or predictable thing about it. Obviously, if you're in a movie and someone gets thrown off a cliff, they're not dead. That's just, yeah.
Yeah. But unless it's the live-action Jungle Book and you're Shere Khan throwing off the wolf.
Yeah, unless it's the end of the movie and you're not expecting a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they're a minor character. But, the other thing that I found so predictable about it was okay, so I didn't expect at all that M'Baku, the quote-unquote man-ape, was going to help them. But once he was helping them, when he says, "I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to show up for the battle," I was like, "Well, of course he's going to show up for the battle at the end, right?" And things like I don't remember his name, the Rataxis, the Rhino Lord, the whatever that guy's name is. When he's like, okay, well, obviously he's going to turn bad and side with him. The other thing, the other thing was there's a scene in there where what's his name, Everett Ross, Martin Freeman's character is looking around and Shuri is showing him the train with the sonic things that dampen vibranium. I was like, well, okay, now we know how he's going to defeat the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
So there's a thing in storytelling called Chekhov's gun, right? You know, if you've heard of that? Where the idea is if you're in a play and someone puts a gun in a drawer in the first act, you know that by the last act someone's going to get shot, right? And that's just storytelling. That happens. Yeah. But this was so predictable.
Well, yeah.
And I was thinking about, okay, some of the other Marvel movies, how have they done that, right? So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I didn't really like it very much.
That's fair.
In that movie, the Chekhov's gun is those little battery things that they steal at the beginning, right? Which they eventually turn into a bomb to kill Ego at the end of it. But in that movie, those battery things have a whole other use in the story in that now the Sovereign is after them because they've stolen it, right? So you don't see that coming as
exactly.
Otherwise, if the Sovereign had said, "Here, these things are very powerful and can be used as a bomb, but we're not going to chase you for them," like if they like. That was sort of how Black Panther kind of did it, was like just sort of this random information that wasn't useful for anything else in the story.
Yeah.
Or otherwise Iron Man, right? When he's flying up and he freezes and falls, you know, that's just part of his development as a character, but then he uses that to defeat Ironmonger at the end, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this was literally just a throwaway line that had no other use except for, okay, well, obviously this is going to use at the end of the movie. So things like that absolutely were predictable.
Yeah.
What wasn't predictable for me was I figured, okay, Killmonger's going to have some connection to the brother that gets arrested, but the way that they played that off, where he gets killed by T'Chaka, by Black Panther's dad, and that Forrest Whitaker was there, and that actually Michael B. Jordan's character was one of those kids playing basketball out there. So that part I was like was cleverly done.
I see, with me, none of that was surprising. I was just like, he's going to be one of the kids outside.
I didn't see that coming.
And I'm like, one of the other guys there, Forrest Whitaker, seems very protective of this. He's going to be involved. And then I didn't be like, oh, he was the exact guy. I'm like, he knows more. He's somehow really involved in this.
Yeah.
So then when it got there, I was like, that's not surprising.
Yeah. See, I didn't see that coming at all.
Which fair. Man, what was I going to say?
I don't know.
There was something. Yeah. I agree with you about the trains thing, where it's like you can foreshadow, but then you can also foretell.
There needed to be some other reason that they gave that information that was going to be helpful for, so that it was more veiled.
Yeah.
But
so the humor part.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's not just Black Panther. It's a lot of other movies where I love being able to watch movies years removed and have it still be excellent and great. But with comedy in movies, like you can do it a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
But with a lot of movies recently, Star Wars being Last Jedi being one, and then this one, even though it had a lot of humor which was organic to the story humor, you had stuff that was straight up like referential humor to stuff going on today. I'm thinking, like, for me, the joke that stood out is the "What are those?" bit when he walks out with the shoes.
Oh yeah, I didn't even get that. I heard about it afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Where I'm like,
to some sort of meme or something.
Like that? A Vine.
Yeah.
Well,
that's not happening today.
Yeah, but still, like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, it's just going to be like, that was there to get a laugh, and you're not going to get it. You're not going to remember. Yeah. Whereas the stuff with M'Baku, if I'm saying it, sorry, like that stuff was character humor.
Yeah.
And it was very much to the character, to the story.
Yeah.
So it's a little gripe, but it's stuff I see a lot of. And in Last Jedi, it was the cell phone reception bit at the beginning, where it's just like, I prefer story humor.
Yeah, see, I didn't actually catch any of those as being funny in the first time through anyway. So
yeah, fair enough. Where, yeah, it's a little gripe, but
right.
Yeah.
So I think overall I liked it better than you did.
Probably.
Like because I was thinking about it. The last several Marvel movies that have come out, I probably liked Thor Ragnarok and Spider-Man: Homecoming better. I like this better than either Doctor Strange or Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Guardians 3? How did you watch
Guardians
that?
2? Guardians 2? Whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, it's I feel like it's another middle-of-the-road superhero origin story that's bolstered by really great acting by the villains and other characters, and also something to say that I think is an important thing to say.
Yeah. It's not that I don't like the movie. I do. Mm-hmm. It's just like it's being so hyped as like this amazing film.
But I think it's hyped on like it's not like the people who are hyping it are legitimately excited about it. I think that's a good thing.
And I'm not like part of me. That's also part of why I'm like I don't want to talk bad about it because I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade.
For sure.
Where I love what the film represents.
Yep.
Like that part's amazing. It's excellent. It's awesome that it's happening. The film itself, isolated from that, that's where I'm like, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, a 5 or a solid 6.
Yeah, I would probably give it a 7.5.
And the slightly frustrating part is when you have like such a talented crew, director, cast, and everything, where I'm like, when you're still in that zone of a 5 to 6, or in your case a 7.5. And 7.5, my bad. I'm like,
we need a 20-point grading scale.
Y'all should be y'all should have gotten an 8 to a 10 or an 11. Like when the movie was when the movie was great, it was firing on all cylinders and it was awesome. But there was points that bogged it down. So I'm like, hopefully, I'm optimistic out of it.
Yeah.
Where it'll almost be like a first Avengers to a Winter Soldier scenario. But I think the same director and cast, unfortunately minus Michael B. Jordan, could get us there. And maybe with a better story treatment where it's less predictable.
Yeah. And here's the thing. All of the Marvel movies that have come out, except for the Iron Man ones, the sequel's been better.
Yeah.
Well, people would argue about Thor, but I think Thor Dark World is better than Thor the original. And
it is.
Thor Ragnarok is also way better than either of those two.
Yes.
So, I mean, they tend the trend is for them to get better. Except for the Iron Man movies, which didn't.
No, they got progressively worse.
Well, or I would say got really bad with 2 and a little bit better with 3. But anyway,
you could also say possibly minus Avengers, but that one's up for debate.
Yeah, well, we'll see when Infinity Wars comes out. I'm very excited about that one.
Oh man, yeah,
no. I think it's good to wrap it up.
Yeah, it's good. All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful day, and God bless, my friends. Take care.